have a bajillion roles.
I do, over 300. Actually, IMDb is full of shit. It's over 300.
Incredible.
Darn, looks like I'll be on time for work again.
Oh, I'm sorry, dear.
We should start, though, with the Patrick Star Show. Like, tell me sort of how you got on that show. I know you've previously played a seagull in the SpongeBob universe, so it's a natural progression.
Of course, from Seagull to his mama. Well, I got this gig just like I get on my other gigs. I auditioned. And, luckily, my dear friend, Tom Kenny, who also plays SpongeBob, is the voice director on this show. So I guess I got a little sweet spot. And I got cast to play Patrick's mother, Bunny Star, who is, she's about as sharp as a sea sponge. And I also play Squidward's grandmother, Grandma Tentacles.
Have you, a couple questions.
Yeah.
Have you always done voices? Like, how did you start figuring out that you had a million characters in you?
My father, Don Francks, who is passed on now, was the very first voice of Boba Fett and was a premier voiceover man in Canada. And so I got started by pure nepotism. I was always in the studio with my father, and one day he was auditioning for Inspector Gadget, and I was just hanging out in the lobby, and he said, "Why don't you let my daughter read for Penny?" And that was it. It just took off like a spaceship after that. And I was doing so many cartoons that I really wasn't going to school. I was just doing cartoons, And I don't know if I would say that I was great in the beginning. When you're a kid, I don't think you're really concerned about whether you're good or not. But I do know that by the time I moved to Los Angeles at 17 and I booked Tiny Toons, Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toons, and I was sitting in that room with all these exceptional talents, I knew at that age, around 17, 18, I wanted to be good at this. And that just changed everything.
Well, also you mentioned that you knew Tom Kenny. It does seem like the voice community is very supportive of each other. Like, people really call each other, help each other out.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the only genres where an actor will refer you for a part they're auditioning for. I grew up with Tara Strong. I was there when she did her very first cartoon, Hello Kitty. We did that together. And Tara and I have been sweet soul sisters for a million years, coming from Toronto together. And, sometimes she'll be in an audition and she'll say, it would be really good for this, Cree Summer. Or I'll be in an audition, to play a princess or something. And my voice sounds like 1,000 miles of dirt road, mentholated cools, Jack Daniels, and regret. So I'll suggest maybe Tara Strong or Gray Delisle, or, there's a generosity in animation, which I can only equate to the possibility that maybe it's because we're not seen. You really have this autonomy. And I think it takes away from that competitive nature. Everybody kind of knows their lane and what they're good at. And that breeds generosity, and it makes for some real authentic friendships too, which is pretty beautiful. So
how did you find then the transition to when you started appearing on television in shows like A Different World? Like, how did you, how was that transition?
I was already, I've always done both, but probably predominantly animation. Mm-hmm. I'm back on camera now. I'm working on a beautiful show on FX called Better Things. I'm also a writer on that show now.
Ooh, girl, that is nasty.
Ooh. That's amazing. I was going to ask about that show. How do you like working with Pamela Adlon? And how did you you came into that show season 3, like how was it sort of getting up with the swing of what's going on there?
Well, this totally plays into what we were just talking about. Pamela Adlon and I have known each other almost 20 years doing cartoons together. And when the opportunity came, I just jumped up and down because I was already a diehard fan. I already watched the show on purpose. And so when the audition came along, oh boy, there's nothing worse than auditioning for a show you really love because you want it so damn bad. And I called Pamela Jupiter the Generous because she really has changed the trajectory of my life. She's made me a junior writer and been so kind to me and really honed me. I feel like a better actress after working with her. She's really an exceptional talent and just a beautiful human being.
To go back to a different world, you came in on that on the second season too. Like, did you have that feeling then too? Like you were like, I like this show. I want to be on the show.
So Lisa, men and women can be friends. Garth is just my friend from astronomy class.
So that's why there's stars in your eyes.
I remember being with my family in North Richmond, California. And my grandmama, my family used to call me Canada because I talk different than everybody else. And I remember Different World coming on the TV and my grandmama, Lily Mae, said, Canada, you should be on that show. And I mean, it was a prophecy. She was very witchy. So she probably unbeknownst to herself didn't know she was, voicing an incantation. So. Thank you, Grandmama.
When we recently talked, it was for Rugrats, and you put Susie Carmichael on that among a number of things.
And these are the kids: Buster, Elisa, Edwin, and Susie.
You mentioned even recently that like there's not always a lot of characters of color in cartoons.
No, isn't. Yeah.
Why? I mean, how did that feel coming into that show and being like, oh, I'm this new family across the street? Like, it's this kind of plot point or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then how have you sort of like grown with Susie, or how does Susie grown with you?
When she first came on, I remember just first of all, I was struck by the animation. This little brown girl looks like a real little brown girl, not like a white girl colored brown, which is how we really occurred, I feel, before Susie came along. And Susie was allowed to be in the complete authenticity of Black culture, and her family the same. And I was elated when Susie came along. And just, Rugrats has been very progressive about, how they treat all kinds of different aspects of human beings. And I mean, I hope that Susie's made a difference in the world to encourage more people to make brown characters, indigenous characters. I just joined the cast of an incredible show called Spirit Rangers. That's an all indigenous cast that I hope you talk to me about sometime soon when that comes out. Things are changing, albeit very slowly. I love cartoons with all my heart because as a kid, this is really some of the first time in your life, one of the first times in your life you see yourself. And if you can see yourself, you can imagine yourself as all kinds of things. So, when there is a disparity of not enough Black characters and brown characters, it's not good,
Speaking of awareness, it's the 20th anniversary of Atlantis, The Lost Empire. And you, I know, are a big fan of that movie and are sort of like, this is a Disney princess of color. You know what I mean?
How about that snub?
Yeah, I was going to say, can you talk a little about that and just like why you think that movie has been like sort of removed from the canon, or however you'd put it? Or was it just at a weird time, or, what do you think's going on there?
I think a lot of interesting things. Atlantis was not a huge success in the box office, and I think that is just typical of not only Disney, but all these monoliths. If something is not a huge success, it just doesn't get very much attention. But Atlantis was beautiful and deep and a really magical film, and also so racially diverse. And Princess Kida was a princess of color who went on to become a queen, the first one. And the fact that it's not acknowledged, I don't know what that's about. somebody needs to check it out. That's what I say. The fans acknowledge that she's the Black princess who became a Black queen. But yeah, she doesn't get as much love as I think she deserves.
Speaking of Disney projects,
Yeah.
Now Disney, you were in a couple of Star Wars shows as a kid, EWOKS and Star Wars Droids.
What are they? Whoa! Lisa!
Obviously you came from a Star Wars related family, but what was it like to sort of be in?
Look at this. I got Darth and Chewbacca and Boba Fett. These are made by an incredible designer in LA named Han Cholo. And I'm just obsessed with these. I'm a diehard Star Wars fan. One of the things my father and I used to do in Toronto when I was a kid is go to a triple feature every year. They'd show A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. And I'm a classic snob. Those are my favorites. And the delight to be friends with Mark Hamill. Oh my God. I still get weak in the knees because he's Luke Skywalker forever to me. And getting to play Princess KNEESAA of the EWOKS was a profound honor.
What's your daily sort of routine like? Like, are you working from, I assume you have some sort of studio in your house. Like, how do you keep track of everything you're doing, or all the shows, all the voices, all the things that you're working on?
Well, I work in my bathroom that my daughters Brave and Hero endearingly call Mama's toilet office. And so I'm in the toilet for hours every day. Charmed, I'm sure. And yeah, I do that. There's a couple of studios that have opened up that I feel have really beautiful COVID restrictions and guidelines that I feel safe to go to. That is a new thing. But otherwise, I direct from my toilet and I act from my toilet. That sounds awful.
And do you keep I always wondered this with people that have so many roles. Like, do you keep voice references? Like, how do you remember Bunny from, whoever?
From Grandma? Well, Grandma Tentacles and Bunny are two very, very different chicks. So I can even play them talking to each other. But sometimes, if it's been a while since I've done a character, I'm a reoccurring character on Curious George, and I'm in and out of there, but not with a lot of consistency. And so when I go to do those recordings, I'll ask for a vocal reference because I don't know what the hell, But if it's a job that I'm working on, once a week or twice a week, I can hold those in my old lady noggin. It's only the reoccurring ones that are, I say, oh God, what the hell does he or she or it sound like,
Well, I also wanted to ask you about another show that maybe didn't get the acclaim, but in hindsight might be interesting, is Courthouse, which you did in around that same time.
I love this interview. You got it. You got your stuff together, sister.
Thank you.
Yeah, Courthouse was groundbreaking because Jennifer Lewis, who's now the grandmother on Blackish, Jennifer Lewis and I were the very first lesbian couple on primetime television. We won a GLAAD award for those characters. And boy, things have changed. Television can be so uptight, man. We weren't even allowed to have a real kiss. I remember it was a big deal that we slow danced. I mean, it's ridiculous. We played live-in lovers and life partners, and we couldn't, the network was going, well, slow dance, but don't put your leg on her leg and don't grind like that and don't do this. It was quite absurd, but quite absurd, but the baby steps that get us to where we are now.
Yeah, it was important that it existed so that then the next time it happened, they didn't have to talk about slow dancing. They could start at step 2 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Start in the bedroom for the love of Jesus. You know what I mean? Yes.
I do love Jennifer Lewis too. So there is that.
Oh, we worked together on Different World. She played the dean of the school.
Oh,
so, she went from being my dean to my lady. And then I just did an episode of Queen Sugar where I played another lesbian professor. And let me tell you, we did more than slow dance.
would you rather talk about Drawn Together or Elmyra Duff?
Oh, let's stay in the realm of the grown-ups. Let's talk about Drawn Together. Let's talk about the Foxy. Foxy Love is chocolate-colored, freaking habit-forming, mystery-solving musician.
To get back on top, I had to reunite the band. Foxy had to swallow the saltiest thing of all, her pride. Girl!
That is certainly not, you're doing all these characters for kid shows, and that is not one of them.
That ain't one of them. Let me tell you something. Nobody was safe. I think the very first episode, there was this glory, glory, hallelujah moment where God was poking a glory hole. So irreverent, check. Yes. Yeah. I love that show. I still love that show. Every now and then someone will post a clip, of Foxy saying, "Them's ain't yo Funyuns, them's the Foxy Funyuns," or everybody loved the Foxy except maybe Papa. I love it.
And all that coming from Inspector Gadget, which has been a long time.
Coming from Inspector Gadget. And nepotism. How about that? Speaking of nepotism, Brave Little Wing, 10 years old, Hero Peregrine Stormborn, my daughters. I've already started. They had doing little incidental characters on Vampirina for Disney Junior. So may the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by, and let's keep this family business going so they can take care of their old ass mama one day.
I love it.
With luscious almonds and the sweet taste of raspberries. It's your heart's desire in chocolate.
Cut! Ooh.
That's not supposed to happen.